The Broncos are back at OTAs today.
Wow.
James Palmer is back in the DNVR Bar inside the Toyota Lounge, where we are rocking and rolling here on the DNVR Broncos Podcast. Of course, the Toyota Lounge is brought to you by the Forerunner and the stores in Colorado. Make sure to check out Toyota, where we've got Todd Davis, we've got James Palmer, we've got you here behind the camera, we've got yours truly, Zach Stevens. We don't have Henry Chisholm yet. Oh, he just walked in a minute late. Jeez. And unfortunately, Courtland Sutton is not going to be a minute late. He's just apparently not going to show up to OTAs. We knew that this wasn't going to happen last month, that he wasn't showing up to the start of the offseason program. And now, once OTAs gets rocking and rolling, he is not at OTAs. But Henry is here. Welcome, Henry.
Thanks.
Wow. What an entrance.
Yeah, no, there were a bunch of fire trucks and stuff.
Is there a fine? Are we doing a fine?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I like that.
What was the most creative fine you had for meetings
That's a good one.
in your career?
Everything was
Not
money.
that you got, but you know
everything
what I mean.
was money related.
Okay.
So it's just different increments of money. But I think 10,000 sounds like a good fine.
Yeah, that's a big
fine. That's a normal fine for missing meetings, like 10,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't. That's not very normal in the normal world. Maybe in the NFL, that's normal.
No, I'm not paying $10,000.
Split it up.
I gotta save up for that one.
Did it go to a pool for the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like
Yeah,
a
there's
literal
all the
Some teams
fines-
do that.
Yeah, all the fines that we pay, I think, directly to the club go to like charity, and then
Yeah,
all the
exactly.
NFL fines are supposed to go to charity. But Roger Goodell's on his private jet every week, so I don't know where it really goes.
It goes to charity, but then they get to write it off on their taxes, not you.
Maybe so. Yeah, I think so.
Have you heard of other sort of fines?
So there's always been like some things around in sports, less in the NFL, but like the NHL this is definitely one where like there's team sanctioned fines, sometimes run by your captain, sometimes run by that, and a lot of that goes towards the end of the season. That's all pooled. That's stuff like your wife's on a road trip, or she shows up on a road trip, like, hey man, we're boys are together. We're trying to win games here, like things like that. Because I mean, you're on the road way more than football. Todd's gone one day a week. You know what I mean? That's it. And so little things like that that's self-sanctioned within the team, and then they'll save it all up towards the end, and then the team will decide what they do with the money. Sometimes that goes to, or I've attended a couple of them with the Avs way back in the day, where there's a massive party. Those funds are spent downtown after the season's over, or they divvy them up, some charity stuff, some all different types of things.
Well, if media can be invited to parties, let's.
I wasn't media then. That was
Oh.
pre-NFL Network. That was like back in the day when like
You're just a boy.
I was just buddies with a couple guys on the team. Like, we were just drinking buddies.
That's
like,
incredible.
Cody McLeod was my next door neighbor, and we just hung out all the time.
Dang.
So that
Wasn't
was actually
that
what it was?
also where the Bowdygate money came from?
It might have been actually.
I think that
I don't
was
know
player
for a
fines.
fact.
Yeah,
I don't know
Really?
for a fact.
yeah.
I just assumed it was the coaches.
Yeah, I
paying
thought it
that.
was like being.
Todd,
I
you'd
think
have the
they
best
probably chipped
insight
in on it or
that.
something. But I think
Yeah, I don't know about. Hey,
What was that?
I
2
plead,
years? 2 years removed?
I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
When you were there too? Oh,
Smart
maybe
call, Todd.
maybe you're a little more involved.
Smart call, Todd.
No, but ours I think did go to charity.
Yeah, I think
but
it
at the
did.
end of the year we'll go to like, if it was like team fines, it would go to the players' charities. But it would go to like Vaughn and Payton's charity. I was like, hey, I got a charity too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got some kids that need some love too.
Yeah,
I'm
come
a
on.
captain. You know, why can't I get in on this?
Seriously.
No, I need one. Don't zoom in too far. Just
Okay.
give me till Thursday.
Well, listen, Courtland's not getting fined right now, so he doesn't have to worry
No.
about it by the
He's
league.
not getting fined in 3 weeks, though. If he's not at mandatory minicamp, I think the fines will add up to over $100,000 for not showing up. So where are the Broncos with Courtland Sutton? Where is Courtland Sutton with the Broncos? Because we found out when he didn't show up for the beginning of the offseason program that He was seeking a new contract. He wanted some more money from the Broncos. Then when we heard from Sean and George, they said, yeah, we've talked to Courtland. He's in a great place. This is voluntary. He doesn't have to be there. He's working out in Florida. And at that time, when we talked to George and Sean, the Broncos, all they were doing was working out at the facility. It was totally voluntary. This is still voluntary, but starting this week, it's moved to no longer just working out. Now it's actual football practices. Todd, you talked about it yesterday, how these are more important for the young guys than the veterans. So it's not like Court's necessarily missing out on tons of information. But the further we go, if this gets to mandatory minicamp, if this gets to training camp, the more serious it gets. So, James, where do we stand right now from both sides?
Well, there's been discussions, to my understanding. There hasn't been a whole lot of movement. And we can talk about this well over an hour. The power, in my opinion, that both sides have. I think Court has actually a lot of power in this spot for the lack of weapons that whoever's going to be quarterback of this team has, and his ranking within that, and the way the position is getting paid. But I do think the Broncos, at the same time, if you look at Court's stats outside of the 10 touchdowns, which I think was like 4th in the NFL a season ago, he's like, I wrote this down. That's why I have a computer. 57th in catches last year, 44th in yards. Yep. Like, these are not eye-popping numbers for a wide receiver to have 772 yards. Like, that's 44th in the NFL. That's not like, gangbusters. You could also say the guy has put up with a revolving door of quarterbacks throughout his career, and if he had substantial quarterback play, what would his numbers be like? He's probably making that argument in some sense. But where it stands right now, and the point I wanted to come out here and make right away, I was thinking about this on the drive over. I didn't deal with fire trucks or anything. I just got straight here and on time.
2 of them.
Yeah, you were here before even the 10 minutes.
But right on, Todd and I were here hanging out. These are not distractions. Let's be clear. I want Todd's point after this, what it's like from a player's perspective when players don't show up. But I was thinking about this when I came over here. What's the biggest distraction we have had from a player holding out in recent memory? And it has to be Chris Jones giving up $2 million during training camp and watching in the stands at Arrowhead the opener where they lose to the Lions, and he gives up $1 million for that game. And what was the conclusion? He comes back, gets his incentives, makes that money back. They win the Super Bowl, and he gets a monster contract with the Chiefs. Like, he didn't even leave. He stayed with the team. Like, if that isn't a perfect example of these are not really that much of a distraction or really hurt negotiations down the road, or you're trying to prove a point and you want your stance to be heard. After that, listen, these are not things that like, oh, this is going to bleed into the season and Courtland's going to underproduce. No. If you look at the Chris Jones situation, I think, Henry, that's a perfect example of how these things are just business. Now, for Todd, I want from your stance, like when players don't show up, and if you're out there right now at OTAs and you know what Courtland's doing, do you even think twice about it? Do you support your boy? Like, what is the conversation amongst teammates during OTAs?
I think it's not a distraction, like you said. I don't think we talk about it much. For my whole career, most of the time guys showed up. And the guys that didn't were big enough names that we knew, like, okay, if Von's not here, we know he's going to be ready. It's not something you have to really worry about. So it didn't feel like he was letting us down or we were losing him. We know how he trains. We know how he works. We know he'll be ready come training camp. Let him get his business handled, and then he'll be back part of the team.
You were there for the DT holdout on the tag, right, all the way till July?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. But DT's another one of those guys.
Like you knew.
You know how he works. Like, it's not a question of whether he'll be ready or not. They're just trying to figure out the logistics. And as far as players, we want everybody to get paid. Once one guy get paid, the whole market moves up. So, like,
not everyone, because you want the team to save money for you.
If you play well enough, somebody has some money for you. The team or another team. Like, you know what I'm saying? Somebody has some cash.
And I think the only other one that I can think of that when you were on the team and really the past 10 years was Chris Harris. I think he held out during this exact part. And then I think by even mandatory minicamp, he didn't miss that because the deal was resolved. The Broncos gave him an extra couple $1 million to come back.
Yeah, because even when you guys are talking now, like, I didn't bring up Chris or DT. Like, you kind of
you didn't even remember.
Because you just don't
like,
even
it wasn't even like
sometimes.
practices were altered. And listen, and what Todd's saying too is if you're following Courtland Sutton on Instagram, the dude is working.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think that's ever been a question his entire career in terms of the shape that he keeps himself in the off season.
And it's the one time you actually like to see the workout videos. Like it seems like usually those are just kind of annoying and you don't really care, but it's good to see that
When the guy
somebody's
isn't
not there.
showing up, it's the only time you want to see if he's
Exactly.
working out.
Exactly.
And I mean, Courtland yesterday, speaking of workout videos on social media, he reposted a picture on his Instagram and just him working out. I believe at a basketball. Well, he's definitely on a basketball court, but
Court
he's
can hoop.
he's working out with
He can really hoop.
He could have played D1 basketball, I think.
Yeah.
And by doing some research, he's still in Miami right now. No surprise. I would have been more surprised if he didn't show up for phase 1 and phase 2 of the offseason program and then showed up this week, because then he would have kind of lost all of his leverage on wanting more money. But we're approaching the time when money's actually going to get involved. And James, I like to hear your perspective that for you it doesn't really change anything, even like if it goes into training camp and into the season even. But isn't there, when you say that, you make a really good point. It didn't impact the Chiefs, second best
It couldn't
player?
have gone better.
Yeah,
Like it was. He's arguably the best. Now he probably is the best defensive player in football. That Aaron Donald retired, and it didn't impact the season at all. Didn't impact his performance at all.
Yeah.
Didn't impact his relationship with the Chiefs at all. And I was following that one really, really closely, and that one got contentious because I don't know how many players in the NFL are wired like Chris. Like Chris literally does not care about money or really anything. He goes by the beat of his own drum. Like he would not. I don't care if I lose $2 million. Like the best way is like the Katz brothers put it to me. His representation best was like Chris didn't care about money when he had no money, so he's not going to care about money when he has money, which he did have. This was his third deal. So like that, if that showed you how bad it can get, and it still didn't impact a team's chemistry, the way the season went in terms of wins and losses, and the way the relationship went between the front office and the player. I think that shows you that there is no need to panic right now. The only time where you can really panic with these situations are when it's strictly the team is put in a financial bind. Like the only place that I can think of right now is Dallas, because you have multiple contracts you're trying to figure out right now. Somebody's going to be left without a chair.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have CeeDee Lamb, who led the NFL in receiving this past year, who should be getting 35. He's going to probably wait for Justin Jefferson's deal. And then you have Micah Parsons, who's up and is in that conversation as one of the best defensive players in football. You could get 30.
Yeah.
Dak should be around 60.
Yeah.
What does that come to for 3 players on your team for average per year? So
you get 3 players and no one else.
Yeah, you can't pay one of them. So like the only point I can say is like when these things go awry is when you're in a financial situation like that where you just can't pay everyone.
Right.
This is a different situation where it appears that Court just wants a little more money and probably a little more security, considering there's $2 million in guarantees this year and none, I believe, next year.
Yep.
And if you look at what's happened, if you're Courtland Sutton going like, all right, let's look at everybody who's gone out the door, who's a veteran on this team, who's a good player because of financial restraints, like I would like to be locked up guarantee-wise a little bit better.
Definitely. And I think Jeremy Fowler said Court's getting like $13.5 million in cash. He wants to get that up to $15 or $16 million. So when you talk about like the Cowboys need to find $100 million or more to spend, like we're talking about like $1.5 million.
130 between 3 players.
Exactly. Like you're talking about like $1.5 million, $2 million plus guaranteeing a little bit more next year. Like it really isn't that big of a deal for a football team.
Well, I think you guys are both making really good points, but I do think there's differences with where the Broncos are than where the Chiefs are. And I think it's a little different than just a $2 million raise. And I want to get into that and raise those questions, but I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota. We're sitting in the Toyota Lounge right now. And James, you talk about like, if you don't want to be worried about money, if you don't want to, you want to have dependability, Toyota, affordable and also dependable. You got to get in on the 4Runner. That is my sort of car. And if you want to find out which Toyota fits you best, because they've got so many cars, go over to Toyota.com. They've got a little quiz for you where you answer like 5 or 6 questions, and they kind of help you narrow down which car's for you. Maybe it's the all-electric BZX. Maybe it's the Sequoia, one of their big ones. You can even get a little RAV4 hybrid They have so many different cars. Or if you're like Henry and you're more of a sports car guy, you can grab the Toyota Supra. There's so many options and so many different options of places you can buy Toyotas. Visit your local Front Range Toyota store at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR.
And I said yesterday that the Rockies should have been favored against the Oakland A's.
Yep.
Rockies won.
Let's go.
Yep.
Did you get in on that plus 115?
I didn't, but hopefully everybody who listened actually did. Today they play the A's again. They're plus 125. The A's are terrible. The Rockies aren't good, but they had like the 8-game winning streak.
Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans, as people say. Also, if you want to bet on the Broncos, you can do that. Right now, the Panthers win total is 4.5. The Patriots win total is 4.5. The Broncos win total is 5.5, and the rest of the league has a win total at 6.5 or higher. So if you're feeling the Broncos, right now is your opportunity to go bet on them because the sports books, specifically Bet365, does not love what the Broncos have done this offseason. If you use the code DNVR365, you can sign up, deposit $10, get a bet and get offer, and place a bet of $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets. Or you can get a first bet safety net offer by placing a bet up to $2,000. If that qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Okay, so the points that you guys made, and James, what you said about Chris Jones actually does make me feel better about not just Courtland Sutton's situation, but really any player holding out situation, because it's like, oh, damn, you're right. That was as bad as it could be.
In recent memory, that's about as bad as it's gotten.
100%, and it still ended in a Super Bowl and a new contract on the same team. But I think there's a big difference between Chris Jones being a veteran, experienced, like you said, the best defensive tackle in the NFL, maybe the best defensive player. That's kind of a independent position. Whereas, and you have the stability of Patrick Mahomes and great leadership on that team. Right now, you could look at Courtland and say he's the leader of the Broncos' entire team right now. So I think that's something that's a little different. He is the leader potentially on the
Chris
team.
was the leader of the defense.
Yeah, the leader of the
One of the better
defense.
defenses in
But
football.
you have Patrick Mahomes there, where like you're not really worried about the team crumbling. You also have a Super Bowl contending team. I mean, they just won the Super Bowl.
Wouldn't that make you more concerned?
Potentially.
That you're effing with a Super Bowl contending roster?
Potentially, that's fair. But then I think the biggest point is Courtland. You mentioned he's got the power because he's the Broncos' #1 receiver, really without question right now. Especially after moving on from Jerry Jeudy, it's Court and the kids right now in that receiver room.
Did you come up with that or no?
Maybe
You
your
must
voice
have.
cracks.
I don't think you did.
I don't know where I've heard it before. Maybe, but then it's Bo Nix. And this is the young receiver where you want to give him as much help as he can have. And Court is the best help. We saw Court go up and make catches that really no one else in the NFL maybe would have made last year.
Great plays
and then
this year.
so now you're missing out on that instant chemistry right away. So I think that this is different than just Chris Jones kind of being an elite player at an independent position. Now Bo's without, and Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham, they're without Court for the offseason. Who knows how long it goes?
I do feel like this is, like you said, a unique situation, but I don't know if it's unique like in the positive or negative. Because you think about Chris Jones and his situation, like they were willing to have him hold out, and he had to hold out during games, and then it got to a place where like, okay, we lost to the Lions, but we have a team that can compete for the Super Bowl. Okay, we got to get this piece back to have a Super Bowl contending team because we need them. The Broncos aren't winning the Super Bowl next year, and as a team, they're going to struggle regardless. So I don't know. Just playing devil's advocate, I want Court to be here, absolutely. In their minds, I don't know if they feel like Court's going to help us get from 5 wins to 10 wins.
Yeah,
That's a good
and
point.
if they're going to spend the money to do so.
100%.
And just for that reason, I feel like it's a sticky situation because regardless, the Broncos are going to struggle on offense by the learning curve that Bo Nix is going to go through with any wide receiver.
Yeah,
And with what Todd's saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Broncos experts here, since Sean Payton got here, has any current player been given a new contract? They spent a boatload in free agency last offseason.
No. You'd think Quinn would get one soon, but
Yeah.
I mean, Tim
Or-
Patrick took a pay cut. Yeah, that's not a new contract.
So your example is somebody who took less money.
No. I mean, to your point,
since
James, they cut Justin
since he
Simmons.
got here,
Yeah.
like what is? I'm just again, like Todd said, playing devil's advocate, saying like, is Court kind of representing like all the players that were here, going like, well, Sean hasn't extended anybody since he's arrived.
Yep.
Like no,
Sternad got a 1-year deal with no guarantees.
That's just re-signing.
That's
though.
just re-signing. Yeah.
you know, like. I mean, Garrett might get one, maybe. And then there's talk he might be gone. Like Quinn's probably the one that will get one, but
Pat Surtain
that hasn't happened. Yeah, that hasn't happened with anybody yet. I think there's maybe like that's probably a little bit in Court's mind too. Like I would also say that he probably held together a pretty crummy offense last year.
Yes.
He's the best player in a bad offense, and without him, I'm not even sure how bad the offense would have gotten.
Yeah.
I do think these reps matter. With whoever's going to be quarterback, we all are going to assume it's probably going to be Bo Nix, right? So reps with your number one wide receiver are probably important right now, specifically when they can do 11 on 11 now. They can do 9 on 7. They can do 7 on 7 in these workouts. So that's probably really valuable. I will say also, if they wanted to get together, and I don't know, everybody does it in Texas, so I'll just say Texas, get together in Texas and throw all off season together. Yep. They have the ability to do that.
Yep.
Like they can get reps together and get on the same page. So those can be made up in a sense, maybe not in a coached environment. But when we look at like the like Court situation, is there a single pass catcher on the Broncos team that you can rely on week in and week out right now heading into the season?
Outside of Court?
Outside of
Nobody's
Courtland
close.
Sutton.
No.
Nobody is even remotely close than Courtland Sutton.
Yep.
Whether it's injury like Tim Patrick, we all like
Yep.
Tim Patrick. We all think he's a grinder and a really valuable person to a team. Just the last 2 years, you don't know if you can't rely on a single guy outside of Courtland Sutton.
Yep. But like you said earlier, James, since 2019, Courtland Sutton, the only thing that you point at to say like, damn, he deserves a new contract is the 10 touchdowns this past season, which was great. It was the fourth most in the NFL. But then even last season, his catches, yards weren't there, and then his catches and yards are pretty much in the exact same spot since 2019 when he had 1,000-yard season. So I'm just viewing it from the Broncos' perspective
100%.
now, and I think the Broncos could look at it and say, dude, we think we're overpaying you right now, and now you want more money. And to the point of Henry, like, well, Court isn't looking for $30 million. He's not looking for a Tyreek Hill deal, but
He's probably a little upset that the
looking at-
guarantees in Jerry Jeudy, who is in his wide receiver room.
Exactly.
The guarantees Jerry Jeudy got in his contract with Cleveland is over $41 million. Court's career earnings are $40 million.
Yeah.
So he's probably looking going like, I think I've displayed I'm a better NFL receiver than Jerry Jeudy during my time.
Yeah.
But you also, as a player, have to remember, Todd probably went through this a million times, where it's like the newest contracts are going to be more highly lucrative.
Yeah.
Right.
You signed your deal, 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years.
It was a 4-year
Same
deal.
as Tim Patrick.
Yeah, 3 years ago. So
Yeah.
you have that. But I pulled this list up on over the cap, right? So this is average per year. Tell me any of these guys that I'll say, and I'll go through them quick, that you were like, I'd rather have Courtland Sutton than this wide receiver. And this is all the guys that are paid above Court. We'll start with A.J. Brown at the top with 32 average, which is nuts.
That's wild.
I would say Court could get half that. Would be fair.
Okay, so listen. So just tell me where on the if he passes any of these people. So then this would determine whether you think he is underpaid. A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm going from top to bottom. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman Jr., Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Lockett,
getting there.
Courtland Sutton.
That like
Courtland Sutton is above DeAndre Hopkins.
he is, which is crazy. But I think like there's like three or four in front of him, not including Lockett.
Court, like if he's asking for more money, Todd, like where does he jump up to in that group?
I think he jumps up a few spots, and I think what's going through Courtland's mind is like,
That's
I
a lot
could
of
care
players.
less about all those guys. You can't go get those guys. They're all on teams and they're all on deals that you guys are not willing to pay. I'm here right now, and besides this rotating carousel of quarterbacks, I've been producing to the best of my ability. Now, if somebody has a dynamic quarterback, best believe I'm going to put up more yards.
Right.
So
100%.
if we found the guy, and you want me to be the guy that we all know I can be, I put up 10 touchdowns, and y'all got rid of Russell Wilson, and you're still paying him $30 whatever million. So he obviously wasn't a fit. but I was willing to produce in that system. So you guys know I'm a producer no matter who my quarterback is. And so he's feeling like all the guys that you mentioned, they're all locked up on their deals. You can't go get any of those guys. But I'm here now. I just want a little bit more money, a little bit more security. And if we have the right quarterback, then I'm going to produce like I did before and even better.
See,
I get that.
so-
I totally get that. So I was just trying to make a point to where he's at in this pay. And like a big part of why a lot of those guys are above him too, and Todd's making a great point, is they became available.
Right.
Like the reason Calvin Ridley, for some unknown reason, is making $23 million a year is because he hit free agency. He did jack shit last year in Jacksonville. Really. He only could run a handful of routes, and once they realized, like, well, he can't carry the offense with Christian Kirk on the bench. Christian Kirk's the one who makes that entire passing offense go. Like, he can only do X, Y, and Z. We'll go out and draft. What'd they do? Went and drafted Brian Thomas Jr. Was like younger version, cheaper version, can do the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
So you got to hit. My point is, you got to hit the open market some of these times if you really want to get paid. Court doesn't have that option right now, so he's essentially negotiating against one team, not 32 teams,
really
whether you
good
come
point.
back or the other teams to come back, which would always drive your value up.
Yeah.
So that's what he's fighting against. But at the same time, I do think he's in a spot because of the situation that he has been in. I guarantee he believes he could have produced at a much higher level if there had been better quarterback play and, let's just be honest, better offensive football.
Definitely.
And not the revolving door of systems.
Yeah.
I think,
well, on top
I think
of that,
even Jerry's deal says like they feel like he could produce more with a new quarterback. Not that
Great point.
Jerry has had like crazy amount of yards to deserve.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? The numbers he's getting, they just feel like his potential is there.
Also,
I think that's all Court wants.
Courtland's extension was mid-season too, which typically is where teams save a bit of money by not waiting until the end, and the player gets to avoid whatever uncertainty there is in the last month or so of the season, whatever was left. But that you would think that if he had hit the open market and then agreed to a deal, even with the Broncos, it would have been more than $13.5 million in cash this year. It'd be more like 16.
Exactly.
Well, let's pull up that list again, James, if you have it.
I have it.
Who is right below Courtland Sutton?
DeAndre Hopkins,
Okay.
Gabe Davis.
Okay, stop right there. Gabe Davis, he just got a new deal. He did hit the open market, and his stats are very, very similar to Courtland Sutton, at least like on a 2 or 3 year average. I think actually he averages more touchdowns than Courtland Sutton. I think his yards and catches are like the
He's a
exact
valuable
same.
piece, I would say.
Yeah. And he hit the open market, and he got slightly less than Courtland. So again, I'm just trying to show the Broncos' perspective. I think that's what they would say is, yeah, you can hit the open market, and you're not guaranteed to get more money than you just got, because Gabe Davis, who was like the hottest receiver 2 years ago, not in terms of like stats, but like, oh my
In terms
gosh,
of
this guy's
attractiveness.
about exactly.
Yeah, the playoff run. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant his looks.
Oh yeah, and the looks too.
He's a grinder, man. He does it all in the field. I get exactly what you're saying.
Right.
And I would think Court's argument would be like, but you don't have anybody, like exactly what Todd's saying. Who are you going to bring in? I mean, you could trade for T. Higgins. He's available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to trade him and sign him to a brand new contract. You know, due to the financial situation that you're in this season and next season with your dead money. Hey, I'm just looking for a little bump and some more guarantees, man. Like, I'm all you have. Because he is all they have.
Oh yeah.
And when we talk about Gabe Davis, like he's a good player. Their numbers are very similar, but he went to a program where he's not even the highest paid wide receiver.
Yeah.
No.
Like he's behind Christian Kirk on that same roster.
Yeah.
And Kurt's like, Courtland's like, I'm on my own team. I'm the best guy here, and I can't even get a little bit more money. You got number twos with similar numbers making what I make. Like, give me a little
There's
bump,
some twos
baby.
above him.
So
Chris
let's-
Godwin's a 2,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
But he's a good player.
So and it's not like the Broncos are paying running backs big money or tight
Who
ends
else are
big
we
money either.
playing?
Yeah, so it's totally fair. And so I want to know what you guys think will happen and what should happen. Should the Broncos give Court more money? But we've got our guy Brian Baldinger join us in just a second. And before we do, I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery. Breckenridge Brewery kind of ran the bar for a couple of months here with the Nuggets playoffs, with the Avs playoffs. Breckenridge Brewery was flowing in here. You're always invited, James.
Oh.
The invites always, especially
That's
to our
what
golf
everybody says.
tournaments.
That's what everybody says when they're not inviting
You're
you.
always invited.
Yeah.
You are always welcome here, especially always welcome. You want a warm Breck brew right now?
One of those?
How about that one that's tipped over?
But we could even put them in the fridge for you because we've got Broncos Country Pale Ale on set. They've also, one of the cool things about Breck is they really embrace the Colorado sports team. So they've got Broncos Country Pale Ale. They've got the Mile High Lager. They've also got, of course, Avalanche Amber. We just need them to get Rockies beer, and we'll be all set. And, of course, Funslinger, Good Company, hard seltzers if you're into the seltzer game. And they've got a new beer for the summer, their new West Coast style IPA Ridge Runner. This double dry hopped brew is inspired by the untamed beauty of Colorado's trails. So it's got a little bit of citrus in it. So make sure to check them out. And if you want to get a beer and you can't make it to the DNVR bar, go to breckbrew.com. Their beer locator at the top of their screen will direct you to your closest Breck Brew near you. Breck Brew, the official craft beer of DNVR.
And shout out to our friends over at True Fan Travel. You guys know that we were traveling with them to the Tampa Bay game this year. The Denver Broncos are on the road. It's going to be a fun time, a lot of food, drinks, maybe a yacht party. You definitely don't want to miss out. And
You want to come, James?
Am I invited?
Absolutely. Here's your
You're always
invite.
invited.
And don't use that. You're always invited crap.
or you get the text when like the party's there. Somebody texts you, "Are you here? Did you invite me? How am I going to be here?
Where are you?
Exactly.
Everybody would love to have you here, but I wasn't invited.
But if you want to be invited, they are your passport to the world of sports. They have over 8,000 fans that traveled to over 145 trips last year. You don't just want to watch the game, you want to live it. You can travel to the most sought-after games worldwide, from football to baseball, basketball, soccer, and more. They have custom travel packages that include tickets, 4- and 5-star accommodations, a unique travel local experience. You can make it an unforgettable sports getaway. And also they have exclusive meet and greets with former players. You can shake hands, snap photos, and share moments with legendary former players from your favorite sports. So right now you can head to truefantravel.com/trips to book your spot today. Be on the lookout for more road trips brought to you by True Fan Travel. Sign up for these road trips are live while spots last.
All right, and speaking of, let's talk to our friend Brian Baldinger. Brian Baldy, what's going on, my friend?
Zach, guys, how you doing, man? Good to be with you. I'm doing good.
Man, we're doing great. We got James Palmer, we got Baldy, we got it all right now.
I owe you a phone call, Baldy. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll catch up, James.
Yeah, I know.
So, Baldy, one of the things that we've been talking about the first 30 minutes of this show is Courtland Sutton's situation. Now he's not with the Broncos during OTAs. In your perspective, you've seen a lot of these, whether it's a holdout. It's not really at a holdout stage yet, but you've seen a lot of these negotiations happen. At what point in your mind does it become an issue, or has it already become an issue?
It varies. It varies. I think Courtland Sutton is an important part of this team. I mean, he did catch 10 touchdown passes last year. That's always double digit. He never did that before, even in some of his really good years. So I think he's an important part. And these players it's all business. So they're trying to leverage whatever they can, whenever they can. It happens around the league. They're a better team with Courtland Sutton in the lineup, regardless of who's playing quarterback, than they are without him. But, there's a financial component to this whole thing, and I think Courtland's played 6 years now, and I'm sure he wants, his bag, and they kind of need him, and I think he knows it. So I think it's probably a leverage play on his part, but when it becomes a problem, is he going to be in the lineup week 1 against Seattle? I think that would be the stage when it becomes a problem.
Baldy, I want to kind of shift this a little bit, but stay on the same topic, because you're talking about his importance, and I do think there's not a dependable pass catcher on this roster probably that's anywhere remotely near Courtland Sutton. And I say pass catcher because I'm going to throw the tight end position into this. This might be the weakest tight end group in the NFL, and that impacts a rookie quarterback as well. And so I almost think that even exaggerates Courtland's importance, and I kind of wanted you to kind of break down for everybody the importance of that position to a young quarterback in today's game.
Well, I have said this on this station before, James, with you guys, that, when you really get inside the mind of Sean Payton, he's maniacal about red zone offense. Mm-hmm. Their blow up on the sideline, with Russell was red zone. They didn't score. And if you just look at the red zone pass catchers that Sean has had, in the past, like tight ends and big receivers are a big part of that success. And, if you're looking at Trotman or Dulcich right now, I would agree, James, it's not a strong position. And if you take Courtland Sutton out, like sometimes Kurt Warner told me this a long time ago, James. He said, you can design all the great red zone offense you want. You're going to sit there in quarters coverage and take all the way these. Sometimes it's good to have Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden just to throw it up and let him go take it off the rim. And I've never forgotten that quote from Kurt. And I think sometimes you look at the guys that Sean has, the tight ends that he has had over his career, like a lot of those are those kind of players. Where you could just go win jump balls.
Yeah, well, it seems like Courtland Sutton is that kind of guy too. I mean, he definitely is. But it also seems like the Broncos aren't willing to commit to keeping him for more than this year. That seems to be the center of everything with no guaranteed money next year. That's surprising to me that Courtland Sutton wouldn't fit the mold that Sean Payton is looking for. Does that surprise you at all, or you see something that I don't?
I don't know. It's hard not to like Courtland Sutton. It's hard not to like him. I mean, I remember when he came out of SMU, like all my friends were talking about him. They thought Cowboys should have drafted him. It's impossible not to like Courtland, the person, and the player. Now, I know he's had a couple of injuries, one major one, but that happens in his business. But, there's not many 6'4" guys with that type of body that can go up and play low post basketball, that's got a big reach, that wins contested balls. Like, he's fairly unique like that. It'd be hard not to like that player and his production when he's on the field right now. I don't care who the coach is.
Baldy, we've been talking about Chris Jones and his situation last year and how the Chiefs ended up bringing him back after a few games. And, the Chiefs were on the road to the Super Bowl and trying to win the Super Bowl. I think the over-under for the Broncos right now is 5.5 games. I think it took the Chiefs losing to see, okay, we need Chris Jones. He's an important part of the Super Bowl run, so we need to have him back. What do you think the Broncos need to see to be like, okay, we need Courtland, no more playing around. We got to have him back, to make this a successful season or to help out Bo?
Well, whoever plays quarterback, I mean, are they going to throw to Troy Franklin? And they're going to throw, I don't know what Tim Patrick's health is like these days. James, you're out there quite a bit. I don't know if he's back. I mean, that was a bad loss last year when they lost him, I think, in preseason. But, Marvin Mims, does he take a step up? I mean, it's not like it's a deep receiving core to begin with.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, Chris Jones, I thought, was always going to get signed in Kansas City. Like, okay, he didn't play week one, in their loss to Detroit. But I don't think he was in Cancun waiting on a phone call. I think he knew that the call was coming. And some guys just change the game. Chris Jones changes the game every Sunday. I mean, he's an unblockable force. It's, I thought Kansas City was going to take care of him, and they did. But I think if you're saying, what's this going to look like, you got a bunch of young guys out there that you're going to rely on, and that's not a great formula to win football games.
Baldy, you're the offensive line mastermind, so I got to ask you about the offensive line. And assuming it is Bo who's the starting quarterback for this team, there's that connection with Alex Forsythe. He was his center at Oregon 2 years ago. Is that a real asset and benefit to Forsythe and gives him the upper hand, or is that just a little overplayed that they have that connection already?
Well, I haven't seen Alex Forsythe play in the NFL. Now, I might have missed games or whatever, or reps that he's gotten, but to me, he's raw. And if your center is raw or inexperienced, your offensive line is going to suffer. Now, you can say, okay, losing Lloyd, all right, he's not a great player. They lose him. Let's elevate the next guy. Your offensive line is going to be as good as your center. Now, the fact that he's got a relationship with Bo, that helps. I mean, because the center and the quarterback, I'm in Philadelphia, you look at, Jason Kelsey and any quarterback that's been here, Carson or, Jalen Hurts, whatever. I mean, there is a real connection that you got to have. I mean, it starts with the snap. Okay, I get it. But then it's calling out the fronts, calling out the mic, calling out the blitz protections, changing protections. Like, that's all in the center. And it's good when the center and quarterback are seeing the exact same thing, and there is no confusion up front. It can be, though, if you don't have that sort of connection between the two.
But Connor Williams is still on the market, the center from Miami. The Broncos, as it stands now, it's Luke Wattenberg, Alex Forsythe, or Sam Mustipher. How much of an upgrade would he be over those guys if the Broncos decide to go after him?
Well, I thought that despite the injuries to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle down the stretch last year in Miami, I thought the biggest loss was Connor Williams. When he got hurt and they put, Eichenberg in there, or whoever else they put in there at center, I mean, I thought the whole thing went backwards. I think Connor Williams, I didn't know he could play center until he went to Miami and they made him a center. I saw him play tackle at Texas. I've seen him play guard at Dallas. He wasn't very good at guard, but I thought he was the really good center. I just think he's a big, strong guy that solidifies the middle. And I don't know what it costs. I don't know what his health is right now. I don't know if he could pass a physical or anything like that. But I would be interested if I was Denver, or maybe 4 or 5 other teams in this league. I'd be very interested in Connor Williams if he comes back really healthy.
But I kind of want to stick with this offensive line because I kind of like this chat here, because obviously so many sacks taken last year. You can put that a lot on the person who was playing quarterback as well. I know Sean Payton doesn't like that and doesn't like the amount of sacks that were taken. And we know Bo Nix doesn't take a whole boatload of sacks. He likes to get the ball out quick. The rest of the group outside of the center spot, in my opinion, I don't think this is a terrible situation for a rookie quarterback to come into with the rest of the group the way it lies, especially if they are able somehow to run the football better than they did last year. But the group as itself with Quinn Miners, I know you're a big fan of him, and Garrett, and he might be in line for an extension here or not, but just the rest of the group, am I wrong to think it's not a terrible situation to walk into as a rookie quarterback?
No. I mean, look, they came together and played. There's a stretch when they won, 5 in a row last year? I know they were taking the ball away in record numbers and giving extra pass, but I thought the offensive line played pretty well. And I thought McGlinchey struggled early, but I felt like he got better playing next to Quinn as the season went on. I didn't think Ben Powers was a big upgrade at guard, but I think he started every game there. I thought they had a lot of continuity. And, we saw, Garrett Bowles is just frustrated. He just has, he hasn't had success. And he's pretty adamant about that. Like, it's sickening, like all these other guys are going places and they're winning games, and, nothing feels good about losing. So I know he's frustrated, but I don't think it's a bad situation either, James. I like to see what the center position is going to look like. That'd go a long ways to make me feel a whole lot better about this group as a group right now.
Yeah.
We'll keep talking about the running game and talk about these running backs. We got a good handful of running backs, and we just added Audric Estime into the lineup. Now, some of my co-hosts believe that he'll be the starter by the end of the year. I don't know.
That wasn't me.
I don't know if it'll work that fast, but, in your opinion, how do you feel like this room will really shake out with all these different players?
I like to see, sometimes it takes, for Javonte, sometimes it's...
Thank you, Baldy.
You got to go away 2 years from the injury, before he gets back to what he was, which was an incredible contact back. That's what he was at North Carolina. That's what he looked like, before the injury. So I like to see what he looks like, because if he's all the way back, then I think he's your starter. I think Jalil's a change of pace back. Samaje had a role last year. Rookie backs, look, there's always this dance. And this is why a lot of teams have this running back by committee thing, because there's a little dance that takes place between the offensive line and how they're blocking certain plays, outside zone, mid zone, whatever it is, and the running back. Some running backs just feel it differently. They see it differently, and they start popping. And the coach is looking for a guy that gets that sort of chemistry with the line and how they're blocking things. And it's not a question of who's the better back. It's just who has the better feel. And so that's about reps. That's about, and maybe it is the rookie from Notre Dame. Maybe he gets that feel early, and maybe he gets the number of carries. But my guess right now is if Javonte is Javonte, like, he's going to be the starting back.
I love it. I absolutely love it, Baldy. We love your
Thank you,
insight.
Baldy.
Thank
That's
you so much for
what I said.
rocking and rolling with us. And James, make sure to call him.
I will. I owe him a call.
Yeah, buddy.
He left a great message.
Thank you, Baldy. Appreciate you.
See you, buddy.
Man, awesome insight from our guy Baldy as we get every single week. And so many things to kind of break down there. And I want to get your guys, before we move on to other things, I want to get your final take on what the Broncos should do with Courtland Sutton, kind of wrap up this conversation. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to everyone tuning in with us, tuning in on Twitter. We just started doing that again. If you're watching on Twitter
Really?
and you want a better experience, make sure to jump over to YouTube. We've got the link just right below that Twitter link. Also allows you to comment and get in on the chat, because the Toyota chat.
I always read the chats.
It's pop. Oh, it's
The chat's
blast.
fun.
I'm always reading. I don't listen to you.
fun.
I don't really listen to you guys
Yeah.
very
Wow,
much,
okay.
but I read the chats the whole time.
Yeah, well, if you
It's
read
really
the
kinda
chats,
fun.
they're destroying Hank right now.
They
for
really
his,
are. I've
his
been enjoying
offense.
it the whole
Hate
time.
Audric Esime. What can I say?
I like that Todd brought it back up.
I know,
He
he
just
did.
throwing
He
me
did.
out there.
I love this.
I haven't talked
back.
about it in a minute.
He
so
gives
I have
off
to,
December vibes.
I like it.
It's like some playoff Lenny type stuff there.
If you
Yeah.
got Baldy and Todd against you, oh boy, that's a scary combo right there. But if you're tuning in on the Toyota chat, which is powered by the 4Runner, hit us with a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Helps us out and shows us a lot of support for free as well. So shout out to everyone in the chat. And of course, turn on automatic downloads if you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on iTunes. It really helps us as well. Okay, so we've kind of thrown it out there. And I got to say, the Toyota chat, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, thinks the Broncos should trade Courtland. They think they should be done with him. The majority of that, we're going to put a pod poll out, so make sure to go vote on Twitter. I bet more than 50% of the people, and I think the options.
What do they think the end game is?
So,
Can somebody in the
It's-
chat
yeah.
put in there like
Put your game plan in there.
Put your game plan in there on trading Courtland and what you want to do. I want somebody to throw that in there. I told you I read them.
Yep.
So,
Full
that's what's
paragraph.
interesting, though. That's what's interesting is the Toyota chat, I feel, is more pro Courtland.
Okay.
They don't like anything of like moving on from him.
People that drive Toyotas want
Wow.
Courtland.
want
to stay.
Courtland.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're good people.
Is that
They're good
what
people.
they-
Good people, yeah.
Maybe we should send a Toyota out to Florida to drive him to Denver.
Yeah.
And have him be here. So to your point, like, what is the end goal? I think the three options: trade him,
Okay, I'm done with this.
Pay him?
I need to know really.
give him a new contract, and then that'll bring him back right away.
Okay.
Or call his bluff and say, we're not going to trade you, but we're also not going to give you a new contract, and see if he misses mandatory minicamp, see if he shows up at training camp. Am I missing an option, or are those really the three?
That's it.
And
Yeah.
I guess you could break the new contract down into a couple of ways.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
what I
is
was going to
something
say.
we
You
haven't
can give him a
got to.
sweetener. I
Yeah.
mean, you can add some more guarantees. You can add another 2 years onto it. You
Right.
don't need to do this like big monster extension. I don't want to misspeak, but I don't think that's even really what he's looking for.
Yeah.
You think it's a guarantee?
I think it's. I mean, he's got no guarantees.
Yeah.
Really left essentially, right?
The
It was
two
a $2
guarantees-
million
Yeah.
The two
this
guarantees
year
for
that
this
were
year have already kicked in.
Already kicked in.
Yeah.
So like, there's really no guarantees left.
Yeah.
I wouldn't love with everything that's happened here be sitting in that position.
Sure.
Personally, he was also he was on the trading block, and they were looking for a second round pick, and there were no takers. Like that's another part of this. And
Yeah.
if you look at
Right.
the list I just put down, it wasn't like teams weren't picking him up for a second round pick because the contract was too expensive.
Right.
So I think this is the best spot for him. I don't think am I crazy? Am I the only one that just thinks like this is just going to work itself out? Even if the Broncos don't do anything, he's just going to play this season.
So
I think so,
call
too.
his-
What it is.
I
call
think
his
so, too.
bluff.
It's not really
Is what-
I don't think it's a bluff. He's just trying to flex his muscles, and he's got
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of them
He does.
in this situation, and actually tangibly
Yeah.
muscles. He's just trying to prove a point in a sense. I think he's still going to play. I mean, still, what is he going to do? What's the bluff? There's no bluff. There's just like, hey man, I think I'm owed this. I think this is my market value. I'd love it to be at this. They're going to say, we don't think so. And he's going to go, no, it sucks. And he's going to play and hopefully put up big numbers and either be released or get an extension after this year.
Yeah.
And get paid by somebody else. I mean, he has to go out and perform again, no
Yes.
matter what ends up happening. And I know Todd's probably been in this situation where you're like, I know I'm worth more. And the team is holding firm. Like, we got to spend money on, they'll tell you this. Like, we got Quinn Miner's deal coming up and we got other things we got to spend. And we're in a financial situation. A, they'll always find the money if they
Yeah.
really want to. B, that's kind of disconcerting as a player, right? Because you're like, well, shit, I guess I'll just play it. You know what I mean? And I got to play it and try to prove myself again this year, right? That's
Yeah.
a player. That's the only way you can think about it as a player, I would
sure.
think.
Yeah.
For sure, because you feel like just like a franchise tag.
Yeah.
Whether they have the money or not, I think that's one of the reasons why they tag you. And then it just makes you have to go through another year of proving yourself. But when you're somebody like Courtland, you got to continue to do that. I think you get tired. I think for him, like you said, I think if they just guaranteed the next 2 years, I think that might get the deal done. I don't know if they're willing to do that, but I don't know if it has to be like a 4-year extension to keep him here and lock him in long term. I just think he doesn't want to have no guarantees because, in football, anything can happen. And also, I feel like this OTAs is pretty important for his position. If anything happens with one of these wide receivers, knock on wood, nothing does, or if somebody just doesn't perform or isn't back to as healthy as we thought, like I think they're going to pick up the phone pretty quickly to call Court.
Yep, definitely. And I just don't know. Obviously, they want flexibility next year, which makes sense always. You always want flexibility. You got to pay Quinn. You got to pay Pat. I wonder what they would do if they got rid of Court, though. Because,
That's my point.
Like, even next year, when you've got Josh Reynolds, who's like a good player, rotation receiver, but we know now he's not a starting NFL receiver. Tim Patrick isn't
He is
getting
a
any
starter.
younger.
He's been a starter. He's
Because
been
of
a 2 or
injuries,
3
though.
for the Lions.
Because
The
Jameson
Lions
Williams is
are
out.
one of the best offenses.
Hey, I got my
in the
start because of
NFL,
injuries.
so.
What you trying to say?
I mean,
You know
that's
what I'm
what I'm saying, but then
And you make the most of it.
Then I blossomed.
and you held on to that job.
Exactly.
You didn't get replaced. I mean, it's you just, unless it's a really perfect situation where Troy Franklin is great right away and Marvin Mims is great and one of Tim Patrick and Josh Reynolds looks like they can be a number 3 next year, like you're going to need to do something. And maybe Sean wants to make some big move and go get his alpha because, Justin Jefferson could be a free agent. CeeDee Lamb could be a free agent.
Justin Jefferson's getting done.
You would think, but you would also think
you would
you would
know.
have just...
Ayuk,
No?
he's
Yeah.
really holding out.
That's
It's just
gonna get
crazy.
done.
Like, it just seems so simple.
You
Like,
think
what,
Ayuk's
highest
getting
paid
done?
receivers,
Or
33?
Jefferson.
Just give
Justin
him
Jefferson will
35.
get done.
Is it just guarantees? Like, you want 3 years guaranteed versus 2 or something like that?
You only have usually one opportunity to reset the market, right?
Yep.
This is Justin Jefferson's opportunity to reset the market, and you want to squeeze every single penny out of doing that because what happens? Like, what was it? The Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, like almost back to back within like 48 hours, and you just one up the guy. Like, so you want to get every single penny you can out of that situation. Justin Jefferson knows he's the best receiver in football. I think we all could agree that he's the best receiver in football. They've made it pretty clear, even when they were going through the Kirk Cousins situation. I don't know how we got on this topic, but when they were going through the Kirk Cousins situation and his departure, even talking to people in their organization at the Combine, it was like, we've made it pretty clear to him, like, he's the focal point of all of this moving forward. He loves playing. I've talked to him about this, playing for Kevin O'Connell. I would love to play for Kevin O'Connell. Because a lot of the Broncos right now would love to play for Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
Choice number 2 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
He was my number 1 choice.
So that's getting done. But like to the Courtland situation, I also think, like, if we're looking at all the different things he could use for leverage, I brought up the tight end question to Baldy.
Yeah.
Like, he's also doing a lot of this without. He's an outside receiver that's a big-bodied outside receiver that's getting no assistance from anybody attacking the middle of the field.
100%.
Like, there is no threat from this Broncos offense down the seam, down the middle of the field. They thought Dulcich was going to be that guy. There was high expectations, again, from another coach and Sean Payton that he'd be that guy. Like, look at what all of these other teams are doing. Look at the number of tight ends that are getting, picked high in the draft. I know Bowers was like we had this debate about super high, but like the amount of young tight ends that are becoming such an integral part of offenses. Ask Todd, like, what it's like when you got a pass catching tight end in the middle of the field, what it does for your linebackers and what it does for your entire offense. Court's out there, like, they're just like looking at him because they know we don't have to look inside.
Yeah. And
His job's even harder. All this is lining up to him being like, man, I just want a little more love because I'm doing a lot of this alone.
Yeah, 100%. And it's very fair. And I get why he's doing it. And coming off a 10-touchdown season, the best number he's had since 2019, it really makes sense that now is the time that he does it, especially knowing, like, hey, they got a rookie quarterback that they probably want to get all the help that they can get for him. And I'm the biggest help that he's got. But at the same time, you guys ask the question, like, what are the Broncos going to do without Courtland Sutton? It's Courtland and the kids. It's Courtland and everyone else
love
right
that
there.
Courtland and the
Yeah,
kids.
Courtland and the kids. Maybe I did come up with it.
Just own it.
The answer is, like, well, their 5.5 win projection. I'm sure Sean's not sitting in his office saying, we're going to win 6 games this year. That sucks. No, of course he wants more than that. But, like, Courtland's not going to raise them from that 5.5 win projection to 10 wins. And in the future,
Wow.
if
What player is raising you 5
Exactly.
wins individually? That's a lot.
oh,
I think this past year, how many wins would they have had without Court? I'd say he's probably good for like
3?
two to 3 wins.
Yeah.
The way
two maybe.
the plays he made.
One, I don't know. I think it's really outside of quarterback. I think it's really hard to get multiple wins.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. So, but and that's my point though. Is like you're probably not going to make that big push this year, and you are going young. You cut your second best player on the team this offseason, and Justin Simmons just said goodbye to him. Why are you not afraid to do that, yet you're too afraid to move on from Courtland? If you're going young at the safety room, if you're going young on defense, if you're going young, might as well just go young at receiver as well. So I think that's just kind of the other side to that question of like, without a doubt, Courtland Sutton is your number one receiver. For
sure.
But
So
like,
your
they
argument
are
with this
making
though
moves.
is just to be like hold firm and say come up and show up this year and play receiver. You're not saying anything other than that.
I think that's what will happen.
Yeah, I do too.
And I agree with you, James, and Todd and Henry. What do you guys think will happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what happens. If I'm the Broncos, I'd be willing just to half guarantee next year or whatever if push came to shove, but it probably won't. Because the big thing is, like, this year's not about wins. It doesn't matter whether you win 5 or 10 games. Like, it'd be nice to win 10. It's just about Bo Nix. Like, all you want this year is just to be happy with Bo Nix and to not be drafting a quarterback. And Courtland Sutton
Does
is
Courtland help you in that evaluation?
100%. I think Courtland Sutton might be the most important piece of that outside of Bo himself. So if push came to shove, I would do what it takes to keep him, but it shouldn't come to that.
Would
Like
you
you
rather
said.
have good offensive line or good weapons for a rookie?
Probably good
I'd rather
offensive
have
line.
a good offensive
I would
line.
say offensive line. Usually what happens to young quarterbacks is they start seeing ghosts. They start, panicking. It kind of happened to Mac Jones where you kind of turn into a different player. If guys are dropping balls and you're still throwing it on time, like, I think you're straight.
Your confidence.
I agree.
there. And then that's
But
why I don't think
if you're
Courtland
getting
is the number
if you're
one
getting
piece. for
waxed
Bo.
and people are missing assignments
Yep.
up front and things like that, and I think that's a completely
The
different
difference
feeling to your
for-
future.
The difference for me, though, is just the Broncos situation. Like, in general, I take the offensive line, but if the question is, like, getting rid of Courtland or getting rid of, Garrett Bowles, who's probably the most valuable lineman, I think I'd keep Court just because you gotta...
I would.
There's nothing
No way.
proven outside him. And you at least have a couple guys on the bench who've played before.
In terms of other guys that you have to pay, because when Sean and George are like, okay, do we pay Courtland or not? They also look at other contracts that are coming up. You guys have mentioned Quinn. We mentioned Pat. There's also Garrett Bowles. He is in the exact same position that Courtland's in now, except he has one fewer year on
he
his
has 1
deal.
year left, not
Yeah,
2.
and with no guaranteed money. So he's coming up as well. Broncos haven't drafted a tackle in any round since Garrett Bowles.
so weird.
Since Garrett
Yeah.
Bowles. So it's not like they really have this like great succession plan for Garrett after that. So there are other contracts coming up, and it's going to be interesting to follow. But I love this insight from James. I've loved it from Baldy.
I think there's a way to get them all done, though.
For sure.
Besides
Definitely.
Pat, he's the only one that can reset the market.
It's like a bank
everybody
breaker.
else.
The other ones are not.
Yeah, everybody
The
else should
middle of
be
the road deals.
middle of the road, good money guys, and I think every team has those guys. If we're not sitting on the, what's his name, Russell Wilson contract,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's very, very easy to get all those deals
Man, you've
done.
already forgotten Russ. He's out the
I saw him in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. I was like, this looks crazy.
Oh, man.
No, but I don't think. I think you can do all those deals, including Courtland, and still not have be over the cap.
Yeah, fair. All right, let's hit a couple super chats before I get out of here. Denver, Shaden comes in and says, can we call the Russ era the Great Depression? Damn, that's
Ooh,
pretty good.
dang.
That's
I like
pretty good.
it.
We're still
Let's just not talk about it.
We're still sitting in that right now,
We
though,
don't talk
because
about
like
the Great
Todd said,
Depression
without
very
that
often.
Russell
No.
Wilson dead cap, we're not talking about any of this like crunching numbers. And we got 2 coming in from our friend Andrew, who says, off-season question, are hot dog sandwiches?
Oh boy. I was told right before we got in here this can't go over an hour. this
we got
show.
90 seconds left.
No.
No.
Hot dog is not a sandwich. Hot dog's in a world of its own.
Yep, I say no. Sandwiches are just sandwiches.
I mean-
I think burgers more of a conversation, honestly.
Sure, absolutely. Hot dog's
Yes.
one bun, right? So
To touch it,
just
yeah.
don't,
Sometimes it
Touches.
tears.
just don't break it. Yeah,
Single
exactly.
bun.
There you go. It's
Closer
a little
to
hot dog burrito.
What?
And final
That's
one from
wrong.
Andrew as well, who
Taco.
says, would be in the best interest of Court to build chemistry with the new quarterback so he can ball out and then get paid. I agree. He needs to stay here, pay the man.
Yeah, he should have came to OTAs and just let Bo fall in love with him and be like, all right, when you get my money right, I'll be
For training
back.
camp.
Yeah.
You know what? It is interesting though because Courtland does have an extra year on that contract. If he could go out this year and not demand a new contract to put even better numbers out there to then get even a better contract after this year. But he's trying to capitalize on those 10 touchdowns right now. And I get it. It was the fourth most in the NFL.
Yeah. Turns 29 in October.
Yep.
That's
He's
on
still
his
young.
side.
Golly, we gotta stop talking about that 29-30 number, man. We're just getting started.
When players hit 30,
Yeah, 30
Todd,
is
they're
like
not
it's
write 'em
over.
off. They're no longer important to the league.
Send them out to
Man.
pasture. Is that what they do?
Henry's the
Yeah.
only one that's not washed on this show.
Wow.
How about that?
What do you mean?
He's
That's
the only one that's not
crazy.
30.
Wow. That's true. Yeah.
We're all 30 and Todd.
got a few years.
32, the new birthday boy.
32.
And that's going to do it for us. Thank you so
Like
much
Shaq.
for rocking and rolling with us, James. We love having you on. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on the way out, and we'll see you tomorrow, 2 p.m., because we got Broncos OTAs. So make sure to stay tuned in the afternoon. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.